Are you like me? Do you sometimes wonder how clams live beneath the sand? You may have seen a clam before, but have you ever wondered how they breathe underwater? Do they carry their air with them like a scuba tank? Or maybe they just hold their breath until they get back to the water? Well, it turns out the answer is actually a little bit of both, and it's a lot more complicated than that. Hi, and welcome to my channel. Today, we're going to be learning all about how clams can breathe underwater. If you've ever seen a clam, you probably noticed one or two things. First, they come in a whole host of beautiful colors, from deep purples to sunny yellows and everything in between. Second, they're buried in the sand or mud. You rarely see a clam completely out in the open, and you never see one without at least its shell poking out above the sediment. So how do they survive like this? How do they get oxygen? Well, clams are filter feeders, which means that they eat by filtering tiny plants called phytoplankton, and they do this using their gills. Now, their gills aren't like ours, which are made of lots of thin, delicate branches. Instead, theirs are made up of many small plates that are lined with tiny hairs called cilia. These cilia move back and forth, creating currents that pull water through the gills and over specialized cells called epithelial cells. The epithelial cells have tiny moving parts called flagella that help capture food particles and move them towards a clam's mouth. So getting food isn't a problem, but getting oxygen is a trickier task. See, clams need oxygen for cellular respiration, the process that allows them to use the food they eat to make energy. But if they take in water through their mouths, they go and get rid of the carbon dioxide that builds up as a waste product of cellular respiration. That's because clams don't have lungs or gills, specifically for getting rid of carbon dioxide. Instead, they rely on diffusion across their skin. This works in a similar way to how gas exchange works in our lungs. Oxygen moves from an area of high concentration to an area of low concentration. In this case, the oxygen moves from the water outside the clam into the clam's body. And at the same time, carbon dioxide moves from inside the clam to outside. But there's a problem, and you probably already know what it is. While diffusion works great when you're submerged in water, it doesn't work very well when you're completely surrounded by sand. That's why you almost never see a clam completely buried. If they were, they wouldn't be able to get any oxygen. Some species of clams have solved this problem by creating a pocket of water around their butt. They do this by pumping water into their shells, then opening their shells just slightly. This creates a thin film of water that surrounds their butt. Because this film of water is in direct contact with the outside environment, the clams can get the oxygen they need. However, this also means that they lose a lot of water to their surroundings. That's why many of these clams live in salty environments where losing water to your surroundings is less of a problem. Other clam species have a special structure called a siphon. A siphon is a tube that extends from the clam's shell and sticks out into the water. This allows the clam to draw water in and out of its shell without being completely submerged. These clams usually live in environments where there isn't enough water to surround their entire body with it, like on the beach or in the mud. Now, you might think it'd be better to have a longer siphon so you could reach further into the water for oxygen, but there's a trade-off. See, the longer the siphon, the more likely it is to get snagged by something else in the environment. So having a long siphon comes with an increased risk of getting stuck. Scientists think that the ideal length of a clam's siphon is a balance between getting enough oxygen and not getting stuck. And there you have it. Thanks to siphons and special adaptations, clams are able to get the oxygen they need to stay alive even when they're completely buried in sand. If you liked learning about how clams live beneath the sand, you can check out another video about how fish sleep. And if you have a science question you want answered, leave it in the comments below.